Hello and welcome to the Alamocenary Moment. My name is Aaron Spears.
I'm Brad Hathcock. You look
Thank you
spiffy
so
today.
much. You look like you just got a haircut too, so good for you.
I did. Yeah, I went to a gala last week for a local theater near me. So I live in a small town, and this theater has been
Oh,
revived uh, multiple times. It's been around since probably the 50s or so. And I actually donated some stuff to this theater from my house from when I
like
bought
popcorn
it.
buckets and shit?
And I No. So when I moved into my house, there was a gigantic
Oh,
mirror over the mantle in my living room. And this gigantic mirror is from Jeanette Glass, maybe. So it's like a small town glass company that was very, very popular back when this was a booming town. And my house was built, I think, in the mid 50s. So we took this piece of glass down. We didn't know what to do with it. We didn't want it. Um, and behind it, it was like these very ugly, like turquoise green, like color. And so we actually donated the glass to this local theater, and they put it in one of their green rooms so that actors and things like that are using it. And in return, we got a like a bench for seating in the theater named after us.
that's
So
truly delightful. And it's named after you.
yeah, it's actually kind of cool.
The
Yeah,
Hathcock
yeah,
Theater.
no, not the theater,
The
just the
Hathcock
seat.
seat. Bench.
Well, my father-in-law spent a lot of time actually helping this theater revive itself. He does a lot of like woodworking and things like that. So he actually helped them revive this theater on the inside, and so we've kind of been a part of this thing for a while now. I've been in this area where I live now for 7 going on 8 years, and it's a very small theater. It's a very small area. We get a lot of tribute bands going through there and small shows. So like every year, there's the Rocky Horror Picture Show that comes through there. Um, from a very small band of people who do local shows and stuff, and they always put on a pretty good version of Rocky Horror Picture Show. So um, we're constantly there. I saw Peter Noon there. I don't know if you know who
I
Peter
don't?
Noon is. Um, so there was like three really big bands during like the 60s invasion and like the European invasion that came into the United States, with the Beatles being number one. And Peter Noon was part of like the third highest ranking band. He's still alive and was actually doing shows, but at the Lamp Theater here, where I live. So not obviously not huge. I think it's maybe like a 300-person theater or something like that. But it's a pretty nice place to see some
Nice.
shit.
Well, we haven't done a show in a while. Life got a little busy, and I tragically lost another pet. My last pet, this one, she was 16. Or I had it for 16 years, but she was going on 18 years old. Uh, so I just had to kind of figure that one out.
We're all sorry to hear that, by the
I
way.
appreciate that.
That's
Yeah,
very
when it
tough.
comes to cats and dogs, it's always tough to hear those stories. And luckily, I have awesome people that are there for me. So um, I don't know what you want to talk about because 300 lifetimes happened since the last time we talked.
That's very true. That's very true. So I think today we should definitely, maybe towards the end of the podcast, where we like to do our positive segment. The NHL playoffs are coming up, and I think everybody that is a fan of this podcast knows that we like to do our face-offs here for the playoffs. There is one uh, there's one open spot available that's going to either go to Montreal or Columbus. I believe if Montreal wins tonight, it guarantees them that spot. And as
They're
last I
not looking
looked, just about 10
good.
minutes ago, it was
Well,
tied
they've been
1
on a
1.
losing streak lately
Um,
too, right?
Yeah, they're playing the Hurricanes too, which is tough because they're a good team. But Montreal got Ivan Demidov over here years before they thought that they would. And the kid played one game and had a goal and an assist. Looks every bit of what they thought he would be when he came over here. So we'll see if he's going to be a game breaker for them
I
or
don't
not.
think anybody wants to see the Blue Jackets. So
No, but you know what? It doesn't matter because every team, any team, either Montreal or Columbus that gets into the spot is going to face uh, the Washington Capitals, which is definitely not good
well,
for
I mean,
them.
like, I don't want to see the Blue
um,
Jackets. Like, I just don't want to see that.
you know what's interesting about the Blue Jackets, really,
Their youth.
is they they brought up a goalie. Yes, they're a very young team, but they brought up a goalie because neither of the two goalies they had that were starters for them this year were really doing very well. So they brought up a guy named Jet Greaves, who is a completely undrafted goaltender. They just signed him to a contract, and he's been with the Columbus organization for, I believe, at least 2 years or so. And he came up and has actually won Player of the Week. So he had like three games, I think 3 wins. Um, One shutout and like a 986 or 968 save percentage, which is insanely good considering the average right now is less than like a 910. Um, and then he actually just shut out the Flyers again last night. So in 4 games, he has 2 shutouts and has kept the Columbus Blue Jackets in this race. But they definitely need Montreal to lose tonight, and then they have to go ahead and win in their next game, um, which I believe is
Thursday.
Thursday night, in order to make the playoffs. So that last matchup is not set necessarily, but we know who it is or is not going to be. So I still think we can
I
make
think
our
we
picks
can.
tonight.
Mostly because I don't think we're going to get another chance to do this in terms of.
No,
Uh,
not before Saturday. Playoffs
I
start
know
Saturday, man.
it's.
Like it's
Oh,
it's coming pretty
yeah,
quick.
it's
So,
crazy. It's like coming off the Masters right into the NHL playoffs. It's like sports heaven right now. All right,
which was funny. Funny story about the Masters. You invited me
I
to
did.
join a Masters fantasy league. And so I love to golf, but I don't pay attention to professional golf. And I actually did fairly well
I'd
in
say
this
so.
league. Now, out of 5 people, I came in third, but the 2 people who ended up taking first and second were what, like a +5 going into the last 2 days. So who could have seen them being like a minus
Yeah.
31,
Well,
over
somebody
two
had Rory,
days?
which that was just a wild round of golf to watch.
And I was gonna take him, and I chose
Well, I
not
never
to
pick him because
because I know that he's always been like on the cusp, but never been able to put together the grand slam that he put together
well, it's
this
been
year.
12
So,
years, but you see the pressure they're under when they're playing, and it's pretty remarkable because one fuck up and man, he was out, and then he came back. So, all right, let's we're old men here. We've been told that by the internet, so let's talk about the old man topics.
and we're
We're
balding,
balding, yeah,
so all this
yeah.
is
We have a
it's
lot of
balding.
hair. I don't know where to begin because foreign policy's been kind of wild, but we tried to levy tariffs. I say we because why not? I don't know. He levied tariffs.
It's the
Yeah,
royal we.
and that all kind of it basically tanked the markets. And I don't think, in my personal opinion, he has constitutional authority to levy tariffs. It should be Congress, but Congress is spineless and gutless, and they don't want that power. And they're scared of him, so they won't take it back. So
Right. So we've talked about this at like pretty much at length, right? Congress has constantly kicked their power to the executive for the last like 30 years or so, um, giving each president more and more power. And all of the sudden, Congress wants to take this, or at least Democrats want to take this power back and say that Trump doesn't have the power to levy tariffs. Meanwhile, Joe Biden, who wasn't even cognitively available, also levied tariffs. Not to the extent that Trump did, obviously, but he also levied tariffs Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, Bernie Sanders, etc., have constantly been trying to crave and levy tariffs against China for 30 plus years. Like, this goes back to 1996. There's video of Nancy Pelosi saying that we need tariffs to fight
Mm-hmm.
China and all this other shit. So it's real funny that everybody who supports those people is now saying that, oh, we shouldn't have the power to do this. The president shouldn't be able to do this. This is on Congress. But you've been kicking that can down the road for the last 30 years. So now you want your power back. And as we know, if you give up a right or something like that as a citizen, you rarely ever get that back from the federal government. So why is it any different when the federal government starts kicking their power down the road to the executive
Same with
branch?
the filibuster, which Kristen Sinema was my favorite. Was out there like, yeah, you guys wanted to put me on a pike for defending this, and now you're using it, and aren't you happy about that? I mean, don't you like that you have the filibuster? So stuff like that, it's like, that's why you don't want to alter the course of history by getting a short-term gain. And speaking of short-term gains, tanking the stock market was an interesting thing, because I don't think that's ever been done before, where you can go online and post something about that and say like, tariffs are off or they're on, and then you like alter the entire market for the day, over the entire world. And that's a remarkable power that I think is pretty deleterious to all economies. I think ours is going to suffer too. But he did pause them. There's a 90-day pause. So although there's a pause, there's still, the markets are still not feeling it. They're not liking it. Today it went down again. He's just wiping like trillions of dollars off the markets.
I would agree with you, and my position has long been held that ultimately the executive branch should have such little power that whoever's the actual president of the United States shouldn't matter that much. They should mostly be like a dignitary to foreign states, and they obviously should have some kind of power to levy over Congress. In the sense that they can veto bills and things of that nature. But essentially, because Congress has kicked their power down the road to the executive branch, they've made it this way. So Democrats and Republicans alike need to just reap what they've sown. I agree that Donald Trump shouldn't be able to have the power over these markets, keeping in mind that I believe the market downturn, as much turmoil as we've seen, has only been as low as it's been in the last 1 year. So it's not like I'm sure we wiped out trillions of dollars of gains, right? Okay, nobody's questioning that. But the markets, it's the lowest it's been in like 1 year. Okay, so it's not like we're back to 1930s style, like, or 1920 style fucking stock market. That's not where we are today, right?
But
I
but you're,
don't.
well,
Go ahead.
because
Go ahead.
you're, it's not just that, like, you don't want the market should always go up, I guess, right? I mean, it should go up and down on its own. It shouldn't be affected by like external forces, and when that happens, it's bad. Sometimes it happens because there's a housing crisis, and then sometimes it happens because you're just doing it for no reason. I mean, I can't see any good reason for it. The justification being national security. But if it was a national security matter, then you wouldn't pause the tariffs at all. You can't 90 days for a social security. That's something else. A national security matter, that seems like a bad idea. So it just, on its face,
No,
it's a lie,
I
right?
agree.
Like, it's just an
Yeah,
excuse.
I agree. But at the same time, right? If you talk to multiple economists, I believe that they would say that there's very similar bubbles in the market that there was in the housing market prior to 2008. We have the largest credit card debt and reliance than that we've ever had ever. We have a huge bubble when it comes to student loans, especially with some of the things that the Trump administration is doing. Some people are claiming that their student loan payments are ballooning completely. That was very you saw that for like a couple of days, and now nobody even talks about it anymore. So who knows if that was even like a real thing, or if that was like a very select handful of people. But we have bubbles all
But
over
you
the
don't want to
place.
poke the
Okay.
bubbles on purpose. Yeah.
No, of course you don't, but you don't want to create them in the first place either. And arguably, that is part of what the federal government ends up doing, is like they end up creating these bubbles due to overregulation, deregulation. Anytime you regulate something and then you deregulate it, it kind of creates some kind of like issues, right? And we're seeing that across the board. Um, Trump is arguably, supposedly, bringing down the prices of oil and gas and things like that. Although in my area, uh, anecdotally, gas prices have actually gone up. So we were down probably about 20 or 30 cents higher or lower than what it is now. And even though the price of oil is going down.
Well, that's
So
because we're tariffing
what is
Canada.
that?
That's, Canada, they send oil to us, right?
Right. But argue also in that regard, we send it back to them. So their problem is that they can't escape the tariffs because they push their oil down through oil reserves here and pipelines in the United States to get it to other parts of Canada, in which case they also have to pay the tariff on when it comes back.
Yeah, but that's
So
like, it's better if none of that is there. Like,
right, but they're tariffing us as well, and everybody likes to misrepresent what I say, especially you and our mega fan about tariffs. I don't believe in tariffs. I believe that they're wholeheartedly a bad idea. Okay. But the principle around tariffs, I do agree with, right? Getting people to the negotiating table. And here's the thing with that. Okay. Everybody likes to say that the economy of the world basically relies on the United States. You see it constantly. Okay. When the United States economy is doing bad, the world's economies are terrible. So if you are relying your entire economy based off of what the United States does, you need to bend to our whim at that point. Okay, that's where you hold the financial and fiscal power is within our economy. So if you're basically restricting people's ability to use our economy to your advantage, then that does make some sense in principle. In practice, it doesn't necessarily work that way.
well, I mean, when you're talking about the world, what you're really talking about is Canada and Mexico. I mean, that's the problem with.
That's
I
not
mean,
true.
we do.
That's not true. We have trade deficits
Trade
all
deficits
over
are
the
bad, by the
place.
way. I want to make it clear that I don't like that phrase because they're not bad.
Sure.
But, you're putting tariffs on what? We have three major trading partners, China and the other two. Well, the other two are our allies who, there's no reason to retaliate with tariffs against them just because they have tariffs. All it does is prove that tariffs are bad. And that you're saying basically they're bad because if they're doing it, then we're doing it. Then we're both. It just doesn't make any sense.
So I think in terms of trade, you have to reject the notion of allies and
I
adversaries,
don't.
right?
Okay.
In my opinion, I do because okay, so you're sitting here saying, right, you would admit that China is an adversary
Yeah,
of
our chief
ours,
adversary.
right? Russia is an adversary of ours, etc., etc.
Not right now.
We hold trade agreements with all of these countries, ally or adversary. It does not matter. You want the same outcome regardless. You want to be able to gain more from that trade agreement
But
than
this
you
violates
lose.
his own
But
trade
I agree with
agreement.
you. Trade deficits. I agree. Remember, he went into office and was like, "Well, whoever made these trade agreements is a moron," and it was him. He basically redid NAFTA, and it was bad. But we can't also ignore the fact that NAFTA, you and I have argued a little bit about this, about being a manufacturing economy. We are a consumer economy. Well, we used to be a manufacturing economy, and then it was through trade agreements like NAFTA that actually outsourced a lot of our work to Canada, to Mexico, because there's cheaper labor. And for better or worse, like at this point, it doesn't really matter,
Well, the
right?
problem.
Economists would argue that because we are a consumer economy, we've actually moved. We're probably the singular most economy that has moved past the need to actually manufacture things, because we are still the richest country in the world and everything like that without manufacturing, or a large portion of manufacturing, that we don't actually need to bring that manufacturing back. That's one of the
Okay, so
arguments.
that's an argument I agree with because you if you try to levy a tariff in 1 year, you try to change policy in 1 year, you're not going to see onshoring of manufacturing at all, if not 5 years out, 10 years out. And you have companies like Nvidia saying we're going to make chips here. That's great, but it's not going to happen immediately, and they could just say that, and that's fine. And then you have other companies like Apple, which are just saying like, okay, could you just not tariff our products? And then that creates some like crony bullshit. And
Crony capitalism, that, like, dude, so as a former libertarian, I would say, right, that's one of the things that has been argued against from the libertarian standpoint for a long time, against crony capitalism. We do this shit to what ends up being crony capitalism is we're doing all of the shit that, like, the left really hates, right? Like supporting billionaires and like doing all this other stuff, but we're doing so through propping them up via subsidies. Um, you can subsidize certain things, but like, why are we subsidizing these giant tech companies that make billions of dollars? Why are we subsidizing healthcare companies via the ACA, things like that, right? So why are we doing those kinds of things? Why are we subsidizing pharmaceutical companies, which the left used to hate, and now ever since COVID, we're like, oh, we need pharmaceutical companies, right? Like, libertarians have at least been against that kind of thing for a very long time, and we still do it. It's like it's crony capitalism. It's what Trump's doing, right? Like when he's taking meetings where people will pay millions of dollars to get a meeting with him. That's crony capitalism, for him to essentially make some kind of policy built around whomever is willing to pay
well, I
for it.
want to say the other thing about the myth about these, what we're doing now about manufacturing, is that there's this assumption that if you bring manufacturing back to America, that Americans actually want to do it. Americans don't want to work on a factory floor, first of all. Second of all, if it does come back, it's going to be automated. So even if this perfect scenario works out, it still harms the American worker, the people that we're always talking about. All this does is hurt everybody underneath these large companies. You're talking about like mid and small size companies who do import stuff and build stuff, and they can't go to Mexico and say, or China actually, and say like, oh, I want to make this box for this thing out of metal, and then they go, for China it's easy, they just go like, oh, we only make metal for like lawn chairs or whatever, and then you can like modify on the fly in those countries, but can't do that here. It's not so easy, and it's going to increase the cost for everybody. Right now, it's going to happen no matter what. It's over. We're looking at like 20% on like everything, and that's because
Sure.
companies can charge whatever they want, but they have to price in the future. They have to, and if you're the guy running everything is just like, I don't know, maybe today, but maybe tomorrow. I don't know. It's however I feel.
Sure. And I don't think you're inherently wrong here, right? It's good for large companies and corporations, or mid-sized companies and corporations that can maybe afford these tariffs, that can pass those costs on to the consumer, whereas small businesses can't. Um, but at the same time, during the COVID regime of both Republicans and Democrats, and being Donald Trump in first term and then the Biden administration, they didn't care about fucking small businesses when they shut down the economy. They shut down small businesses while these large corporations were allowed to stay open. It was considered one of the largest transfers of wealth and business ever to happen, because you just allowed these corporations to stay open, and they could afford to
It's
be
just a
closed,
distinction without a
whereas
difference.
small businesses couldn't afford to be closed. I
Yeah.
agree with you. It is a distinction without a difference. But I've also said forever that Republicans and Democrats are essentially the same. They just go about things differently, but they end up with the
Well,
same
the horseshoe
outcome.
theory has been like fully proven recently because they all agree on this stuff, and it's all bad for the country. It's bad for regular people. I'm out here just saying, like, look, don't do any of this. Just leave it alone. The American economy is fine. It actually is fine. I don't know why they say like we inherited a terrible economy from Biden. You inherited an economy that had severe self-inflicted inflation, and you decided we're just going to make it worse. And I am like really just annoyed that people seem to steel man this version of it and not the other one.
Sure.
But it happens.
Inflation technically is down, but this is before the tariffs have even taken
It
real
might not even
effect
be
on
inflation. Like, I
anything.
don't know what the inflation is going to look like, or if there would be any. I'm just saying that, like, no matter what, prices on everything is going to go up, and so I don't know if that's going
Ultimately,
to
yeah.
cause it'll cause a
Ultimately,
recession.
yes.
I don't know if it's going to cause inflation, but either way, it's bad, and it's just like these are the people who are out there saying like, yeah, I'm Union Joe, and I'm here to support the unions, and then Trump's like, oh, I'm a union guy through and through.
See, now here's the problem with that, right? Is that there are actual unions, i.e., the UAW, supporting the
But be
tariffs.
careful.
But those same unions backed Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, I guess, if you will, for election purposes. They turn around and say that they are pro-tariff because they believe that it will bring more manufacturing jobs back to the United States. Now, while you don't believe in those manufacturing jobs coming back or people not wanting them, and I think I generally agree with that on its merits, but um, if you speak to like Midwestern states or like the Rust Belt states that get these manufacturing jobs, where it's very like small town, being from a small coal/steel town, I understand. Well, not from, but living in. The golden era of of where I live was steel and coal, which no longer exists here, right? So the prevailing thought of getting those manufacturing jobs is that in those areas where the cost of living is less, those are actually very good jobs to have. And people like Crystal Ball like to say like, oh, we're sending Trump wants to send factories back to like the 1920s where kids were working in them and people were losing all their
I support
hands and
that.
all
Yeah.
that. That's
Oh,
not going to
bummer.
happen, right? Like, that's just absolutely not going to happen. That's not the way things work. It's just like people saying now, like, oh, union busting and we get rid of unions. Well, I mean, at least from an anecdotal standpoint, my stepfather he used to work for Teamsters. He actually makes more now that he's not in a union shop because he changed jobs than he did in a union shop. He has better benefits, more vacation time. Now it's anecdotal,
That's
right?
fine.
So it's not 100% true everywhere, but it is the case for some people. So when you see things like that, people will cling on to
I
those
know.
things.
I'm telling you,
Like,
those people are drinking the Kool-Aid, and they're gonna regret it because
right.
it's not gonna happen.
But if your ability to say go work at a fucking Starbucks in rural Kentucky, right, or Louisiana, and you make, I don't know, $13 an hour, and Honda decides that they're going to open up a factory because of all the tariffs and all this other shit, and they break ground, and you spend your time and you get a manufacturing job for Honda, and they're paying you $18 an hour. $5 an hour anywhere. I don't give a fuck where you work. An extra $5 an hour anywhere. That is huge amount of money to increase, unless you live in California, which is probably why that you kind of see it that way.
Well,
But if you go from making $13 an hour to $18 an hour, you've significantly increased your quality
I
of life.
understand that.
Okay, regardless of the fact that $13 an hour is not a lot of money, $18 an hour is still little bit less than $40,000 a year. But if you go from making $27,000 a year to $40,000 a year, you've significantly increased the quality of
And
your
you're
life.
making this like perfect argument. I appreciate it.
Sure. And it's not perfect,
Well,
I guarantee.
here's why it's not perfect, because it's never going to happen. None of this will ever happen. You can try to bring manufacturing back. It's just not going to be for the workers. But everything else will be more expensive in the meantime. I mean, there's short and long-term pain. Like if you are the $13 Starbucks worker, that $18 job isn't coming. You could think it's coming, but it's not coming. And meanwhile, everything just gets worse. So I mean, those are the people who are supporting these policies, or they didn't think it through all the way. But I'm just telling you that like none of that's going to happen, and we should probably be honest about that.
Right. So I would also argue with you, right, in the sense that poor people don't own anything.
Not anymore.
So when it comes to paying increased costs for consumer goods, they generally don't own much of anything to begin with, or they don't at least have the money to spend on said things. So if you're in an area, a very depreciated area, and you're like, yes, let's bring manufacturing back to America. You love it in principle, but in practice, it may not be practical. But you're not thinking about whether or not it's actually practical, whether or not you think things through well enough, or you're not, as the left would say, educated in terms of this, but you're thinking about what could be for yourself, right? And quite frankly, when you're poor, all you have is hope. So you're hoping that this brings some fortune to you, and that maybe you can own a nicer car or a nicer house one day. Whereas right now, with the way that rural Kentucky or Louisiana or Missouri stands, because Missouri is I believe, our poorest state, which is still better than actually most European countries, believe it or not. The thought process would be that maybe one day I could own something like that. And so you support somebody like Donald Trump in the sense that he could bring a great manufacturing job to your area and employ 2,000 people, and bring more jobs back. We did see in, I believe, February or March, an increase in almost 300,000 jobs in the United States, which actually well surpassed the expectations of economists in that regard. So,
Actually,
is it working?
they corrected that number down, so like it didn't meet the forecast. Yeah,
Did they?
but
I
I want to say that I'm going to simplify what you just said. What you just said was all these people have all these hopes, and I am terribly sorry that people lost their jobs in certain industries, and I would never celebrate any of that, and it just happened anyway. But they just wanted to get away from Biden's policies. That's what they voted for. I think it's that simple. And instead, I mean, they're going to get what they voted for, and they're going to get it hard. But I think he's just overextending everything, and that's not something anybody wanted. They wanted the border to be solved. Border solved. Now, how they but
boy,
I mean, how they're going about it.
They went down to what, like less than 500 illegal crossings.
It's true, and that's something people voted for. I mean, but people didn't.
They solved that.
Yeah, but people didn't vote for somebody to tank the economy. And that dream that you're talking about, that's 10 years ago, man. Like these people, if they still think that's coming, but this guy isn't going to deliver.
So here's the thing, and we've talked about this, right? Like you're saying he tanked the economy. He didn't tank the economy. He tanked the stock market. The majority of people who own stocks are fucking
no. 60% of Americans own stocks. No. Brad, we all have 401ks.
Sure, they own stocks that are 401ks. Sure, but the people who own these stocks that lose the money, that will actually have actual liquidity in the market, and not just a 401k where they're waiting to retire, it doesn't really matter, because there are millionaires and billionaires losing money. So but they also have the money to buy back.
I'm not a millionaire
things.
or a billionaire, but it has harmed my purchasing power. It's that simple.
Sure. So just as simple, if you want to fix this, if you want all of this to go away, because we are a consumer economy, don't fucking buy anything.
Well, that's what I'm telling you. People are going to stop buying things,
Plain
and it's going to
simple.
tank the economy.
Dude, if consumerism goes away, and here's the
There's
problem.
nothing wrong
right?
with consumerism, Brad.
I don't think there is anything wrong with consumerism, but to sit here and think that people are absolutely powerless to stop all of this, right? They're absolutely powerless to stop any of this, because that's what Democrats will have you believe. Everyone is powerless. That is not true. In a consumer economy, you have more power ultimately than in any other than in manufacturing economy, because if you just choose not to buy anything, there's no economy.
Okay.
So the companies will have to pivot. They will have to maybe just eat the cost of those tariffs that are ongoing. The president will have to remove the tariffs that he has on the economy. He will have to do something to actually stimulate economic growth.
Or do nothing.
Because we can't be seen. That's not true. He won't do nothing. We can't be seen to be weak and have a shitty economy. Do you realize, like, everyone is like, oh, I'll move to Canada? Do you realize that Canada hasn't had like economic growth in like over 4 years?
We don't have a bad economy. If you don't touch it, it's fine.
But see, you can't say that. You and I have sat here and called for an economic recession for the last 2 years.
No, we said it could happen, and it did, technically, on old terms. But that
did it? Yeah, on old terms, not on Biden's terms.
That's not.
Right?
I didn't adopt that definition.
Under the Biden economy, absolutely. So we had that recession. We're definitely probably headed for a new recession. I believe everybody except for Bank of America has actually said that they don't see a recession in the economy. But Bank of America has, they're not the most reliable people in the country. But they are one firm out of many that are saying that they don't believe a recession is impending. It will be interesting to see. The Trump administration says that they have 70 plus countries on the bill to come in and negotiate. But they said a lot of that in their first administration, and that shit never really happened either. We'll see what really happens. The EU said that they would be willing to go zero for zero tariffs,
and that's fine or whatever. But like Germany has basically a bunch of towns that were created around manufacturing plants for like Audi and stuff. And recent reporting would suggest that those are all becoming mini Detroits, that it's all just going to collapse. It's just a matter of time. And so you look at country, and Germany's a big country. It's a big economy. And you look at that and you think like, yeah, you think Europe. Like, what's in it for them to do that too? I mean, 0 for 0, right? Perfect world. That would make sense. I get it. But the tariffs that other countries impose on us are not, I just don't see them as that big of a deal. I never cared about it. I think it's bad, but like now it's just bad for us, which is,
well, if you think about it, what are the major imports that we actually even bring in from the EU?
I don't know. I guess cars.
It would have to be like Mercedes, BMW, right? Like luxury cars that most people in America can't afford anyway.
Japanese cars, they can afford.
Sure. Now, I would agree that there needs to be some form of trade deal with Japan, because they don't allow U.S. cars to be imported into Japan. You have to buy like a Japanese car or probably a European car or something along those lines. They don't really allow U.S. cars.
But they don't want U.S. cars.
Same thing with China. Like, but you see a lot of like Suzuki cars here in the United States because they're dirt cheap. But we can't get U.S. cars over there. U.S. cars arguably are better than a Suzuki car, right?
I don't know about Suzuki cars because nobody does. All I could say is that nobody
buys them.
Nobody in Japan wants an American car. I mean, if Japan were to say like tomorrow, like, all right, American cars, we're doing it. That's not going to change anything. That's not going to make American companies stronger.
It might not. It might not. But I just find it funny that, Democrats supporting unions, and unions are turning around and actually supporting tariffs.
You know what?
Because Democrats also support tariffs, just not when Donald Trump
Okay,
does
well,
it.
Democrats.
See, that's the problem that we're in, right? Because you have both parties that actually support tariffs. It's just when somebody else does it. Obama called for tariffs. Biden called for tariffs. Nancy Pelosi called for tariffs. Pretty sure Clinton had tariffs.
I've been bitching about it for the whole time.
Everybody's done
I know.
tariffs, right? Like, it's just he's doing it to another level. But we've also had the greatest economy. Like, our economy has never, like, really. When's the last time our economy has seen like a negative?
Well, I'll tell you what.
Like a negative growth, which we are projected to actually have, not a negative growth, but like a 1% or 2% growth, as opposed to like a 4 or 5% growth.
Well, I'll tell you what's going to happen. He's going to try to subsidize auto companies because that matters. Because what's going to happen
I'm against
is the people that sell those cars are going to add that subsidy on top of the price, and tariffs are going to cause everything to go up too. And regular people, these blue collar workers that they're trying to save, are not going to be able to go out and buy a fucking Tesla because those are too goddamn expensive as well. So none of this is good. I'm just saying, like, you're saying, like, the Democrats and the Republicans, they're bad, huh? And I'm just saying,
yeah. Well, they are. Dude, remember Pete Buttigieg said you should go out and buy an electric car, which at the time was on average like $60,000 for an electric car.
It's only cost more now.
So he's sitting here saying that you have to go out and buy an electric car for $60,000 that people don't have.
Well, this whole like buy American thing is like bullshit, because I don't want an American car. I just don't want one. I don't like them.
So, right, but so here's been my position forever. Everyone is bullshit. Everyone in the government is bullshit. They're all lying to you. They're just doing it in different ways. And it's just what you choose to fucking believe. I've been sitting here saying this forever. That the government is lying to you, regardless of fucking who's in power or who's doing what. They're all lying to you.
I just want to point.
Okay? Like, I know a leftist who's like, well, you can't believe FBI statistics now. But you could believe them before. But you can't believe them now. Because Donald Trump is in office. The FBI has been lying to you for fucking ever.
Okay,
but now, because Donald Trump is in office, you can't believe their statistics. But you would quote their statistics previously. So if everybody just took the stance that everyone in the government is fucking lying to you, because they are, you actually probably would be better off.
I think it does sound like you're steel manning all of this. I don't think you like it. I think you are trying to find. You're trying to explain.
Like, you kidding me?
How it's possibly going to work, and I just want to point out that I just think it's just wishful thinking.
Here's the difference. I'm a man of buying nothing, and when I buy something, I buy it cheap. All of my clothes I buy secondhand. There's no tariffs on that, regardless. I buy everything from Goodwill or consignment shops. This fucking shirt, the pants I'm wearing, everything's from consignment. Am I paying a tariff on that?
Nope. Are you sure about that?
Do you know how much the pair? Yeah. Do you know how much the pair of pants I'm wearing costs?
No, Brad. Tell us all.
$118. Do you know how much I paid for it? 18.
See, I'm good. Now, it's not true. Tariffs are going to affect the vehicles that deliver the things that you're buying.
That's not true.
They found those pants out behind the...
Dude, it's consignment. Do you know what consignment means? People literally bring the shit that they bought into the store and trade it for cash, and then they turn around and sell it. They bring it in with their own car. They don't bring it in by the truck.
We're so far afield right now.
It's the same thing with Goodwill. They donate all of this shit to Goodwill. And you know what happens? Goodwill takes the fucking money and they pay their employees, and it's like supposed to be cheap goods. The problem is, at least in my area, not everywhere, the people that put shit in Goodwill, they're putting good brands in, like Express or Untuck It, which is a brand that not a lot of people even know of, or Eddie Bauer. Like, they're putting some of the higher end brands into consignment for cheap. I buy all my shit secondhand. If everybody started doing that, you know what would fucking happen to these tariffs? Gone. Because you know why? The economy would be tanked, but it would be tanked because the consumer tanked it. And then the government's going to have to do something to actually increase consumer spending, which would be to remove all the fucking tariffs.
If they wanted real reform, they would get rid of the Jones Act. That's all I'm going to say.
Of course they don't want real reform. The government never wants real reform.
Well, I'm just going to say there's only one clothing brand that matters to Aron, so all right, we've been going for a little bit.
Ooh, enlighten me on that. What's the clothing brand that matters to Aron?
Let's say there's this company, Adidas, that I'm single-handedly propping up right now.
Yes, the one company that makes track.
Okay, now that we've been going for a little while, I'm sick of talking about this shit. I'm getting upset. Move on.
We might as well do our hockey picks. We are 45 minutes into this. We should do our hockey picks.
You seem to be better at this thing than I am. Do you have a way to do it?
You'll have to write it down, but I can pull up the
I've got a notes pad right in front of me.
Perfect. Okay. So, let's see here. No, we don't want that. No, we do want that. Okay. So, where do you want to start? Do you want to start in the west or do you want to start in the east?
We started in the east because we're all east. We're east teams.
Start in the east because we're all east. Okay. And so we'll go 1, 8, so on and so forth. Okay. So we have the Washington Capitals versus either the Montreal Canadiens or the Columbus Blue Jackets.
I think it's fair to say that regardless of who takes that spot, we'll probably both pick the Capitals, so
I'll give you first pick.
That's generous of you. Well, then I'll give you the first pick in the other.
Okay. I'll take
then
first pick in the
I have
West.
to take the Capitals.
Okay. Then I'll take obviously whoever is left. I do believe it will end up being Montreal.
I hope so. That would be an upset.
But that would definitely be an upset. So you got the Caps, I got Montreal. So now we have Toronto.
Ooh, tough.
Versus the other wild card, which it will be the Ottawa Senators.
Yes, I believe that's correct.
Yes. Toronto versus Ottawa. Wish they had.
There's a lot of dead air, Brad. The listeners,
yes.
they're hungry.
No, I got it. Yeah, I found it. No, Toronto versus Ottawa.
Come on.
I'm gonna take Toronto.
Come on.
I'm gonna take Toronto here. Actually, I like their goaltending. Both goaltenders, both Stolarz and Woll. I'm a big fan of. Sorry, I was flipping through. Now I found something that actually has like real brackets going, so that's a little bit better. So we're good there. You took Washington over Montreal or Columbus. So our next set would apparently be Tampa versus Florida. It's your pick. I think I know who you're taking.
I'll take Florida, but
win or lose, I think you're going to take Florida. That's your team.
So they've been looking pretty rough lately, but that's because they've been just getting ready for the playoffs. They locked their spot in, so they just, the games have been bad. They've gotten players that just don't ever play, and it's been rough, but they should have everybody on board. Marchand, Tkachuk, Barkov, Reinhart, everybody, Bennett, they're all going to be ready. So hopefully they'll be ready for the Lightning, who are great.
Actually, the majority of Florida's lineup has been out for the last couple of weeks. So that's why they've looked bad. All their best players have not been in the lineup. So I would have to agree with you there. I think Florida could definitely surprise Tampa, but I will say Tampa looks very,
They're
very
going to be
good,
very formidable, and
they had a very good trade deadline. Although one of their best trade deadline pieces, which was Oliver Bjorkstrand, I believe is out, so he may not be a factor.
it's also worth noting that last year the Panthers just smoked them in the first round, so they're going to have a chip on their shoulder.
That's true, and there's a big question on whether or not Tampa has the defensive depth to handle that. But I have said to you multiple times this year, I don't trust the defense that the Panthers bring, because they got rid of Montour. Ekblad missed the last 20 games due to a suspension. So is he going to even be... he'll be fresh, but will he be like sharp? I guess is the question on whether or not he's actually serviceable in
Jury's
playoffs.
out on Seth Jones too.
Yeah, but they have Forsling, which is always helpful. It's just, I guess the questions for both of those teams would really be on the defensive side of the puck. But goaltending, both teams would be phenomenal
on paper.
in that regard.
Yeah, I don't trust Bob right now.
I mean, I would give probably the scoring depth to Tampa in that regard as well. They have a lot of guys who can really put up points. You have Point, who can score 100 points. We're close to it. I think he had 90 some points this year, 99 points last year. Kucherov is having a season that is kind of flying under the radar because Draisaitl is scoring like so much and stuff. So, but at the same time, you have young guys on Florida like Mackie Samoskevich, who only had like 14, 15 goals throughout the year, but he's playing in like a third line role, occasionally hitting that second
He's been
line.
really great, and last year he played in the playoffs, so he got a little bit of experience, and yeah, he's good.
Yeah, and Marchand, I think, will actually be a very good addition for them. Make no mistake, like I do think Tampa wins this series. I truly do. But Florida's going to be a motherfucker of a team to get out regardless. And they weren't considered, I don't think, a favorite last year. And they ended up coming out of that like gangbusters and took a pretty easy cup.
They weren't considered for anything the year before either, so...
Right. And Edmonton kind of snaked their way back into that series with them. But I truly believe that Florida is going to be a motherfucker of an out.
I think the Lightning is I would go with your instincts on this. So we'll see.
I think it's going to be a very good series. It's one that I am very, very interested
in watching. One of the
two,
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm interested in watching pretty much all of these series. But that one specifically is probably one of the best matchups in the first round.
All right, what's the next matchup?
That would be the Carolina Hurricanes versus the New Jersey Devils. I feel like I have to take Carolina here. They are a favorite of mine. Rod Brind'Amour is their coach. They're one of the better teams. Jersey is going to be at least temporarily without Jack Hughes, who is working his way back and may be available at some point during this first round. But will he be useful? New Jersey's had some goaltending issues. They're not exactly sure who's going to be starting. Whether it be
Markstrom.
Let's see, whether Markstrom or
I don't know who the other guy is.
What's his name? I forget his name. Just off the top of my head, I'm forgetting his name. But he's he came over from Montreal, I believe, in the off season, and has actually had a pretty good year. Veteran goaltender. So that one could be interesting.
I think the Canes are the easy pick here.
Yeah, Carolina's goaltending is not inherently the best either, though. But Carolina's getting Alexander Nikishin, which is one of their top prospects from the KHL, and he can score points. He loves to hit. He's a big defenseman. Whether or not he gets in to the lineup or not is questionable, but they have some room there. But New Jersey's not a
No, they're
bad team.
trouble.
They're definitely trouble. Heeshier's having a pretty good year. Jesper Bratt also having a good year. They have a pretty good defense. It's like very underrated. So that could be a very good series. It's another one I'm watching, but I will say if Jack Hughes does not come back for that series, it's going to be low scoring.
All right, Brad. Let's move west.
Vegas versus Minnesota.
That's probably a hard. That's pretty tough.
I'm taking obviously Vegas. In terms of just winning here, um, since this is my first pick, Vegas is Vegas. I mean, obviously they're good. Up and down their lineup, they're just
Marc-Andre
good.
Fleury's making his tour here.
He is, and it's his final season. But Minnesota is barely making the playoffs,
which
here.
is weird because they started out so hot.
Exactly, but for a few weeks there, they lost Kirill Kaprizov, and they lost one of their other top tier players as well. So I understand why they weren't scoring as much. And they also got Zeev Buium into their lineup, who was one of the best college hockey defensemen, especially offensively, out of anyone. He's somebody that the Flyers should have drafted in last year's draft and didn't. They moved down one spot with the Wild and took somebody else, and the Wild took Buium. Very upset by that. So they could actually be a little bit better, but their goaltending's been a little suspect this year. So Vegas is obviously.
I have when I said tough, I have no interest in this series. I guess it's not flashy.
And by the way, I'm just going from
That's
top
fair.
to bottom on this app. I'm not. It's not the actual standings.
Couldn't care less, I guess.
I think it's close. Yeah. Well, the Winnipeg Jets have won the President's Trophy, so if you want to, I'll give you Jets versus Blues.
Well, what would be my?
Because they would be the top. The Jets have definitely won.
Is that is that the next one in line, or is?
So the Jets? No, it would be the next one down. The Jets are number 1. St. Louis is number.
I'm sorry, just mean, is that the game I'm picking next, or series rather? Yeah. Don't give me any edge here. I don't want it.
Winnipeg was number 1. St. Louis is number 8. Whereas Vegas was 2 and St. Louis was. Vegas was 2. Minnesota was.
All right.
7.
So what do you want me to pick?
You can go ahead and take Winnipeg.
All right, I'll take Winnipeg. Yeah,
you're gonna take Winnipeg here. Okay. I don't mind taking St. Louis. Actually, they struggled to make the playoffs a little bit, but it was because they had a really downturned like mid-season. But ever since the Four Nations tournament, Binnington has been one of the better goaltenders in the NHL. But Connor Hellebuck is going to win another Vezina Trophy. He had like 8 or 9 shutouts this year, which I think was like 4 more than the next goaltender. And just has the best numbers. But the problem is he's also played a lot of games, and the Winnipeg Jets seem to have an issue scoring when it comes to the playoffs.
I was going to say, last year they looked not great in the middle there.
They had an issue last year or the year before where in 5 games, I think they scored a total of like 7 goals or something like that in the first round of playoffs. So,
well, also the West sucks.
Their offense seems to dry up
compared to the East. They got a lot of easy wins, I would say.
That could be true. That could be true. I mean, from the East, Ottawa has battled. They haven't made playoffs in like
I'm excited
eight
about
years
that.
or something like that. I think. Yeah, that'll be very interesting. And then obviously, if Montreal makes playoffs, they haven't made playoffs. With withstanding like a COVID year, I think they made playoffs in like a COVID year, but that was a very odd time. So like a lot of people kind of throw that year out where they were in a playoff bubble, because you also had like East mixing with West and stuff like that based on geographics and stuff. So people are kind of throwing that out. Um, but going back to our Winnipeg St. Louis series, St. Louis went on like a 12-game win streak just recently, which even put them in position to get into the playoffs. So with Winnipeg scoring issues and St. Louis kind of being on fire, I could see St. Louis winning that. So I'm not super
All
upset with
right,
that
next
pick.
one up.
Edmonton versus LA.
So I don't know where you're going to go with this with your pick. You're free to pick whoever you want. I am focusing the Galaxy's energy on the Kings to win this series. If there's a God, please let the Kings win this series.
So am I. I'm gonna take the
I think
Kings.
that's good karma.
I may very well lose this.
Yep.
But this is the 4th year in a row that we are seeing the Kings face the Oilers in the playoffs. To be honest, I'm kind of sick of it. I like to see different teams play different teams. But Connor McDavid's just coming back from an injury. But obviously he's the best player in the world when it comes to hockey. But you have Draisaitl, who just came back from an injury, had like a 50-plus goal season. But they are struggling defensively, although they just got one of their top-tier prospects, also from college, Cole Hudson, into their lineup. Whether or not he plays in the playoffs, you don't know. But one of their top defensemen is out in Ekholm. For the Kings, I don't trust their goaltending, but I don't trust Edmonton's goaltending either. Skinner's not exactly had the best year for himself. And Byfield, who is one of the top forwards for LA, but usually kind of plays on the third line, even though he's one of their best forwards. They try to spread out their scoring and give him better matchups. He hasn't had a breakout year in terms of points necessarily. He's actually 1 point shy of his point totals last year. But he didn't get an opportunity to complete that because he actually got injured at the end of the season by a player by Seth Jones, maybe? No, not by Seth Jones. I forget who it was. Darnell Nurse injured him, I believe,
I hate Darnell
from
Nurse
Edmonton.
so much.
Got suspended for one game for that, but that game should be over, I believe, before the playoffs. So that'll be it's an interesting series, but it's a series I'm just tired of seeing. Like, you don't want to see the same team play the same team over and over again. The NHL is better than that from a
I was gonna say I agree with you, but then I'm like, man, I really want to see the Panthers play the Lightning every year. But it's weird because it's like the Battle of Florida. I saw the Kings play the Panthers and they look great. Like I don't know. I just don't want to see the Oilers in the playoffs at all.
I think I'm right there with you. I do like Connor McDavid. I don't think he is as adversely affected for me as like a Sidney Crosby was, right? Like, I fucking hated Sidney Crosby, still hate Sidney Crosby because he's a Penguin. Although I give him credit for kind of changing who he was. Connor McDavid wasn't as like of a bitchy little tween as Crosby was when he came into the league. So I give McDavid a little bit more, I guess, grace than that, but he's also the best player in the world. But I would also be really happy to not have him win a Stanley Cup. I don't know why.
We don't want Canada to get one.
That's the other thing, right? Like this, I think, is like the greatest opportunity for Canada to win a Stanley Cup in the last 20
They're
some
like all in
years,
it.
because you have Edmonton, you have Winnipeg, you have Ottawa, and then maybe Montreal in there. So let's just keep that out of there. Especially, Canada's really upset with the United States right now because we want to make them the 51st state. So it would just be all the more fitting that we beat their
Yeah.
ass at their own sport.
All right. So the last game, I've already written down my selection. I think this is the
This is a good
premier
one.
series.
This is the best fucking series that we should even see in the entire playoffs, regardless of
Yeah.
who wins. I think this should be the best series out of all of them. And unfortunately for everyone, we're getting it in the first round. This is a series where people are saying this shouldn't be a first round series and that they need to change how they do the playoffs so that we don't see this shit. Because everybody would rather see these two play in a conference final or a Stanley Cup final or something along those lines.
This is a conference final
So
matchup.
it should be. It really should be. Only one of these teams has a Stanley Cup in the last 10 years, that being the Colorado Avalanche, who completely remade their roster, and they would be playing against the Dallas Stars, who have built their team through drafting multiple times because they have some older players in terms of Jamie Benn, and then trades via Tyler Seguin. But they have Miro Heiskanen. Like they're a total package team that just hasn't super excelled to take over like their division, because Winnipeg just has kind of crushed everybody. So who do you have? And that I was glad to leave this one to last to make you pick out of the hardest of the
I'm
two.
gonna take Dallas here. Just yeah,
You are,
and you get the Avs.
but why?
Um, well, I just watching them play like last year in the playoffs, I kind of saw firsthand like how good they are, and I don't know, I just feel like they're destined to get. I don't know. I feel like they're destined to get the cup. I don't know.
I think Dallas has the better goaltending for sure. I think Jake Ottinger is hands down a better goaltender than Mackenzie Blackwood, who was traded to the
From
Colorado
Sharks, right?
Avalanche this year. Yep. And then signed a long term deal, and
He's
he's been
fine. Yeah.
fine. I believe that the defensive depth, especially if Miro Heiskanen comes back, is definitely there for Dallas. And I think the storyline of Mikko Rantanen being traded from
Awkward.
Colorado to Carolina, and then Carolina trading him to Dallas, and now they're playing each other in the first round of the playoffs is truly something. I will say, this is like a series where I actually don't care if I lose this to you in terms of just like a bet. I'm sad that we have to witness one of these teams lose in the first round.
And I know the energy in the arena doesn't matter, but maybe it does. I don't know. I just feel like going into Dallas is like in the playoffs is like a deadly thing. Like that place is nuts.
Absolutely, it's one of the places I'm really looking forward to going. I'm trying to visit all the arenas, and it's definitely one that I'm looking forward to going to. But I hear Colorado's arena is
Oh, of
no
course not.
joke. I will say I told you the other day I've been to at least 12 out of the 32 arenas, so that's a good amount. Like that's not a minimal amount. It's like a third of I don't know. I'm not a math guy. It's close. It's like a third, I guess, of like what's out there, and close to. And Chicago, regardless, at that time when I went there, they still had Taves, they still had Kane, was like electric. I've never seen so many people be into the national anthem in my entire life. Like, it was actually a really cool time. I hear Dallas and Colorado are pretty much the same as well, and they both have really good teams. That's one where I think I'm going to stay up and watch those games when they start. We start on Saturday night, okay?
That's tough because I got to watch all of it last year, and it's like the benefit of being on the West Coast. You get to see all the sports all the time.
It's the number one thing that pisses me off.
I get
You
I get to see every game I want to
dude.
watch.
Like, but games that start at like 10:30, like I generally am not staying up till like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning to watch a hockey game. But that series, that one, and then Florida and Tampa are probably the two best first round series that you could see. But it's also a shame that we have to see them.
Yeah.
Like, second round at least should be where we see those. And that's where a lot of people are saying, like, we should be moving to a 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, so on and so forth, in the NHL, as opposed to having like the standard like wild card situation. But it just kind of is what it is, because with the situation that they have now, you can see a team actually cross over into another division to play whomever is at the top of that division. And people don't like that. One of the things that you would have, well, you would kind of want to see maybe like rivalries is kind of like the big thing, right? So Tampa, Florida, that's a huge rivalry. They're in state, everything. You might want to see something like that. Whereas there's not a ton of rivalries. I mean, LA, Edmonton would be a rivalry now, especially because they've seen each other so often in the playoffs. But like Winnipeg, St. Louis,
Yeah, that's
not
just
really.
kind of weird, actually.
Yeah, I mean, like, nobody's a rival with the Minnesota Wild, especially the Golden Knights. Like, the Minnesota Wild are just lucky to make the playoffs at this point.
Yeah.
So,
okay, well, that was exciting, and I will send you the pics via chat. I'm excited, man.
me too. I look forward to playoff hockey every year. It is sad to see the regular season come to a close because I feel like the season's gone very quickly.
The Four Nations also kind of was weird because it was so great. It was like, oh my god, this is the Stanley Cup.
When it prolonged the season, and it still feels like it just really flew by. But watching some of them games, man, like the U.S. versus Canada game was amazing. It was absolutely epic, but Binnington just shut that door, right? I mean, and then enough till McDavid could get the game-winning goal, but I mean, just what a series. And it's unfortunate that if anybody thought that Sweden or Finland could like actually win in that tournament, is sad. But they thought about expanding it. Problem is that they won't let Russia participate in these kinds of things, even though they are one of the superpowers of hockey. So as a hockey fan, regardless of your politics or anything like that, is a detriment to everybody if you're a hockey fan, because Russia, especially in a year in which Alex Ovechkin, which we didn't get to talk about, beat Gretzky's goal scoring record. You just would kind of want to see that kind of play out on that stage. I mean, you have Bobrovsky, who's one of the best Russian goaltenders. Where Russia typically lacks is on the defensive side of the puck, especially because over there they try to play like a more high octane situation, so you don't see a ton of really good Russian defenders. But fuck, can they stop the puck and score?
Kucherov's Russian, right?
Yeah. So you would want to see guys like that. I mean, Kucherov having such a good season, Ovechkin having such a good season. You'd want to see those guys in a tournament like that. And one of my favorite memories of watching hockey was going down to Pittsburgh and watching the USA versus Russia in the Olympics, where TJ Oshie took like 7 rounds of the shootout and ended up winning. Like it was such an amazing experience and everything. So it's a shame to kind of have to exclude those guys from something like that, because even in a 4 nations tournament, if you're only having those 4 nations and you're allowed to include Russia, are you dropping Finland or Sweden? I mean, you would end up dropping one of those countries in favor of Russia, because there's so many more well-known Russian players than there are Swedish or Finnish
Love the
players.
Finnish players. I'm way into them. Okay. Is there any? Do you have any closing thought? I guess I should say, like, the Ovechkin thing is like, I can't really like say like, oh man, I can't believe you did it, because I didn't think Gretzky's record would stand forever my whole life. You know, like I'm somewhat new still.
So from my perspective, and we can probably kind of end on this, I did eventually feel like maybe his record would be broken. There was Wayne Gretzky, and then we had eras where, like, they call it the dead puck era, where scoring and stuff was down. But the NHL has done things to increase scoring, and it was only a matter of time before somebody comes along and breaks that record. But shockingly enough, Ovechkin back like years ago said that there was no way he would ever touch that record, and here he is breaking that record
in
this year.
In a season like no other. He broke his leg,
and he's
and
not done. Okay, he's not done. He's gonna play another at least 2-3 years, so we're gonna see that record extended, and people are already asking who is the next one to break that record.
That person's probably not in the NHL.
There's no way that person's in the NHL, because people thought it could be Austin Matthews. He scored like 69 goals, I think, the 1 year, or 67 goals or something like that, like, which is ridiculous amount of goals. Like, keep in mind, there's only 82 games in a regular season. So for you to score 67 goals, like, you've scored in like 75% of the goals or of games that you're even playing in, not to mention assists. But then this year, Austin Matthews, due to injury and many other factors, only has like 32, 33 goals. So even half that production. And that's just not going to happen. Gretzky's record stood for a very, very long time. And I think wholeheartedly that Ovechkin's record will stand for a very, very long time. It will take them doing something to increase scoring again at some point. There had been talks of shrinking goalie pads. There had been talks about increasing the net size, which I'm
I wouldn't like that. No.
vehemently against. This is not lacrosse. You put goalies into like a lacrosse situation and just forget about it. You might as well just take goaltending out of the situation. But I think it could be a very, very long time before we see somebody break Ovechkin's record.
Okay, perfect way to close. Brad, I'll see you next time. Bye.
Pleasure, buddy. See ya.